The gangsters and dictators that are controlling our African countries are all borrowing similar methods of repression, suppression. They're sharing intelligence, they're sharing security forces, they're benefiting off of each other's resources with business investments and other personal interests that are coming before the needs of the people. So Kenya is actively borrowing and learning, and a great student of Museveni's book of dictatorship. We see Tanzania is also going in a similar direction, use violence and militant repression to silence the needs, the wants, and the voice of the people. We've seen patterns of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, abduction, torture, arbitrary arrest, trumped up charges, arbitrary long detentions, and also cybercrime laws and different forms of lawfare against the citizens. That's being spread across the region and also borrowed from other elements of the continent at large. We understand that Rwanda also has a very strong hand in perpetrating some of the similar practices against voices of dissent as well. So it's not when, it's already happening. And for me, it's not only a concern of my own country, it's a concern of what's happening to people across our borders. We are one African family that have been divided by those who wanted to conquer us, and now we're being conquered by those who are also, I can't call them our own people, our internal colonizers and oppressors. So yes, they're all following very similar patterns. They're sharing resources, they're sharing wealth, they're sharing strategy, they're sharing militia, and we as the people are also working more closely together. Because we must stand together, we must fight back together, and we have a duty and a responsibility to our people and to future generations. Kenya is not practicing democracy. I think trying is a very good statement. When we compare it to other countries, you could say they're trying. But what is the benchmark? It's a very poor benchmark. Because here there's also violence, there's rigging, there's citizen militias, there's suppression of civic actors and voices, extrajudicial killings, torture. So I would say trying is an overstatement, because we're giving them benefit of the doubt. So Kenya is also actively suppressing democracy. Again, we're grateful that some are still safe, and that it's somewhat a safe space for people from across the region. But we're very concerned because those democratic freedoms are slipping away, and people have fought so long for them. People have sacrificed so much over decades for the freedoms that we enjoy today. So it's also our responsibility to keep fighting to safeguard that and hopefully build a better Kenya and Africa. For the people. We say I think for me the biggest element is the impunity. That you can murder, you can torture, you can have more. Who's he saying that he's going to cut off Bobby Wine's head and that he's got someone in his fridge torturing them, in his basement torturing them. You not only have the impunity at the highest level, but you also have it within all the chain of command. So until there's any accountability against the human rights violations, the constitutional suspension and other issues that plague the misuse of resources, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is that they steal from the futures of the majority of the citizens. One of them. And I think when we're looking at Uganda, for example, there's no judiciary, there's no justice. Every single branch of government, oversight, executive, is run by the family cabal. So when you have no hope in the judiciary, no separation of powers, no oversight, and no regulation being done by those East African or African Union or the oversight bodies that are meant to ensure that human rights are respected, both at regional, local and continental and international level. It means that they just get braver. And become more violent, more suppressive. As they learn how to capture power to even further extremes. As we've said, it's rule of law versus rule of man, yes? Because in the Ugandan law, it provides for that you're allowed to observe as a citizen without any accreditation. You're allowed to stay 20 meters from the polling station. So over the past weeks, we've seen shoot orders and warnings of violence and even threatening the voters that they will be shot if they stay within 20 meters of the polling stations. Beyond that, we saw a very big military deployment throughout the rural areas in the CBD. So a lot of threats being issued to people to even come out and vote when we know what the Ugandan regime is capable of. It intimidates voters to even participate, much less stay to observe the tallying in the voting process. So there's nothing to be said about democracy. There's nothing democratic in anything that's happened in the past 30 years in that country, 40 years, or now. And it's only getting worse and worse because we see the military's involvement in the electoral process, or this coronation exercise, is only getting deepened. It's not my place to give advice to the people of Uganda. I think what we can give is we can give courage, we can give solidarity, we can ask them how we can better support, but we're not here to determine what is the pathway to freedom, to democracy, to liberation of their country. We're here to stand beside you, next to you, behind you, and support you in whatever ways we can. And that's one of the reasons we've been amplifying what's happening in the darkness, because when voices are cut off intentionally, we're happy to raise our voices and also speak in coordination with them on their behalf. But it's not, so for me, I would say stay strong, stay courageous. Change is coming. We know that elections are useless in this region, so we must continue organizing, strategizing, and fighting for what's ours.
Ebyo biva mu ggwanga lya Kenya. Bannakenya bagamba nti nno bakwatirako bannayuganda kuba ekifo e Uganda buli kigenda mu maaso e Uganda ne Ruto kyakopa eri n'akibakola. Kati balwana bwezingirire okulaba nga Uganda etereera ne bannayuganda beyagalire mu nsi yaabwe. Wulira wano.
Is to remind us that the East African community has 8 members, and 7 out of these 8 are not democracies. 7 out of 8. Sudan, Somalia, DRC Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania. None of the 2027 is a democracy. So that leaves Kenya, which is a work in progress, to respond to the. That's why we've not pegged our hopes on any country, but we have pegged our hope, and we are raising an accountability question with the East Africa community. Why are we doing so? Because we saw in Tanzania, the chairman of the Africa Union Commission issued a statement which was contradicted by the Commission, by the Africa Union Commission, because it has a treaty that it needs to uphold. That's why in our statement we are talking to the East Africa Community Treaty. There is no country here which can be counted on. Our statement actually confirms that the repression is coordinated. In Tanzania, it is Museveni who rented out his militia to kill Tanzanians. So our president here, who is coming up for the people's scrutiny in 2027, can only pray for any support and help he can be given to subvert democracy in Nairobi. How do we know that? Because he calls Museveni Baba Yetu. He's their father, their godfather of torture and abduction and repression, assassinations. So there is no, we don't have anything to expect from Kenya as a government led by William Ruto. That's why our statement is calling on Africans and East Africans to do what we did for Tanzania, to do what we have done for Uganda, and for them to stand up for their countries and our countries as Africans. We are not pegging our hope on the dictators who we know that they are actually operating jointly to kill our people and to destroy democracy. So we are very, very clear on that. Museveni has even named an institute in Makerere University after William Ruto. Do you see what we are talking about? That is the comradeship amongst them. It is so tight that William Ruto was given a name in the Makerere Institute when he was deputy president. under Uhuru Kenyatta. So what do you expect now? You can already conclude what the relationship between the two is, and we are not waiting to hear anything from Nairobi, because they have already congratulated Museveni even before the constitutional process is completed. The constitutional process is that if there's anybody who has a petition against the election, he takes it to the court. But Bob Jagulanyi and his officials and leaders were picked from their homes and detained and disappeared on 15th. So that it is impossible to even raise a petition against this fraudulent election, because if a petition is raised in the court, evidence is going to be supplied. The international media will go there, and the whole world will see that what happened in Tanzania and what has happened in Uganda is identical. So that is why we know exactly what I'm sure William Ruto must be praying that he can also stop people from going to the Supreme Court.
Right, kale biva mu ggwanga la Kenya bannaffe nabo basitukiddemu bagamba ekimala kano ke kadde no essaawa gino Museveni ayitaawo ne mutabani we n'abo bakola nabo ba Ruto basumia bonna bayitaawo. East Africa etereere tulabe nga ne Rwanda nayo gyakwebiri aho bonna tulina okuwooza ekizibu kikyali kinene, tulina okuwooza region eno tugitereeze naye nga ffe bannansi ffe tulina obuvunaanyizibwa obwo okutereeza ensi yaffe teri mulala.